I wrote this while I was in detention, watching every idiot in there for a different reason get in trouble. You want to know what the reason I was in there was for? Skipping study hall to do proactive work with my business partner. That was the crime, Judge. And this is what I wrote. I had 2 hours to write this. I did it in 50 minutes, and for the remaining hour, I sat there and looked out the window. That's why the end is going to be fading off. It was dapper.
Why are you spoiling it?
For...
Yeah, that.
Okay. The day humid and cloudy. The light there, and my retina burned with the knowledge of experience. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is throwing me peace up sign? Get out! I'm right. Detention. The day humid. No.
Detention. You have attention in my day.
Detention. Detention. The day humid and cloudy. The light there, and my retina burned with the knowledge of experience. Currently serving detention for skipping study hall twice. An offense somehow punishable, like such, treated in the world as if skipping a court date. The Bible sits to my right and the phone to my left. The notepad in between. Perhaps good, bad, and middle. Not one but me appreciates the beauty of unrecognized. I stare 10 minutes to the outside, and not one looks. All oblivious. Listen to the teachers talking with the students across the courtyard, the windows creaking open, the hum of the AC, and the clicking of feet, hands on phone screens, a click of a mouse, a bag slamming, the zipper opening, and a clasp on a metal water bottle, the sharp sound against the hand, all unrecognized till now. Must be glad to be able to. I fear sometimes many too caught up in a plan, agenda, to notice things not bringing dopamine. Why detention? Detention, a word used to act as a punishment for those inside the education system, deriving from the Latin detenere, meaning to hold back, now called a deterrence, and the co-part definition is an ending of time or place. Detention literally means, in the most literal sense, the holding back of what is due and or a right. They are taking the most important thing, and these children don't realize it. Revolt will never happen with submitting minds. Time is to be taken, never replaced, if God is not your idol. For false faith and misinformed, time means very little, because worship never occurred. There will be no eternity. However, to the mind, it is irrelevant, but to the spirit, it is crushing. Detention, not so bad for productivity, and this speech, as written in my textbook, is not complaint. However, using time as protest is necessary in this case. Scrolling on their phones, no one is watching them as they watch others. But to create, people reflect upon, and it has been consumed. Creators destroyed. When you're the only man in the room with the Bible on his right, you're the worst in regards to those who consume. Over time, will kill your ambition. The ambition for goals will die, and they will covertly swindle your pride and individuality, for every time you disobey the right, a wrong will follow, for a compensation. But you will not realize, for the devil's disguise is presently grand. Trickery and mirage is the perfect way to surprise your enemy when it's too late. Time is never here nor there, I tell myself, as poof, 2 minutes gone like that, as I check the clock again. It feels like the clock means nothing to these people. We have been given the privilege of anger for the reason to hate evil, not to use it loosely, however. They know not what they do, becoming more and more prevalent. 7 kids in here for fighting the wrong opposition. Their enemy is the disguise of who is spoke of. Most people's missions are too pointless for self-recognition to them. They worship the want. But as I sit here, writing this, we are all on the same level, the same room, the same phones, and the same person of authority we must listen to. But as of now, their mission is similar to a small dog and a big dog, getting beaten in somewhere like North Carolina, using the same size stick, but except the person hitting them is in Nebraska. And so the value is incomplete, meaningless. It has no intent. But when the allowance of art is prevalent, the teacher says we must leave. It is over. Detention is over. I look at the clock, and it is out of unrecognized. The recognized is prevalent.
There's a lot there to unpack. But I like it. What was... I liked one of the first quotes you laid down.
Yeah, I know, there was a lot.
There was a lot, so I want to take...
span of 50 minutes of revision.
I want to take the time to go through each of them.
Mm-hmm.
But one that really stuck out to me.
Would you like keep it up, actually?
Yeah, I want to look back to one. Just so that I say it right. To the mind, it is irrelevant, but to the spirit, it is crushing.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Do you want to elaborate on your meaning of that?
Well, to the mind of a soul who is empty, because your mind has your tie with the soul on earth, is what I believe. It is a crushing spirit only when you have that removal of art.
Yeah.
But when you have art prevalent, but the removal of wants, sometimes even needs, and you're on your deathbed, all that is left is the soul. And the mind's longing for natural instinct to keep us alive is gone.
Yeah, I suppose that on your deathbed, all your needs are met.
Correct.
In a
That's
weird
what it
sense.
means.
Yeah.
The soul is there, but the mind is irrelevant.
That's why
the soul is crushed.
You know, I once laid out a formula on how to get the best meditation, so I noticed that being well fed, being well slept, and then being in a warm room with everything that you've needed to do for the day done is the best conditions for meditation. You can reach unfathomable states of consciousness doing that. But I want to look deeper on the soul, because to me the definition of the soul, and I pull this definition from Alan Watts, but he would say a soul is outside of you. People think that it's something within you, like it's a vessel, but the soul is outside of you.
Well, consciousness is universal.
Precisely.
So that's what he means.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I agree with that, because nowhere do they say that the soul is just here. Like, you're not.
But in a sense, you're saying
your mind is not your soul.
Yes,
Your soul
yes,
is
yes,
your
yes.
faith and purpose.
But in that sense, it's saying, and that's why I think it's such a powerful quote, because it's saying
That's why
that
it took me
all
a little
that's
bit to
left,
sum it up.
all that's left is what is.
Yeah, it was a different way to phrase that, and probably would get through to most of our audience easier.
I don't know if they would impact that.
I don't know.
Because I don't think a lot of people understand the
feel-
clear definition of the soul and the distinction between that and your mind.
I feel like it's prevalent. I use that word a lot now, I realized.
Yes.
But I do feel like it's prevalent towards people in our realm, and not our realm of thinking, but our realm of society, meaning our classmates, our peers, even our supervisors could understand that and be like, okay, well, to them the soul means something that's here, that's everything, that's what the soul means to them. And I think the quote would still prevail in their minds as what the meaning is. Maybe a lot simpler, and maybe they wouldn't think about it, but it's still there. And everything that you intake, everything that's an income, can be an export.
You know why it's there, right? Because that's art.
Anything else you want to make mention of?
No, I just think that the connections between everything were drawn very completely. But you write in such a way that I don't think, and you speak in such a way that I don't think a lot of people pick up on what you say, and that's why I like really taking the time to explain it, because the more different ways you hear something to someone who you're teaching, who is, of course, below you because they're being taught. It just helps them understand it. So, I mean, you said everything that needed to be said, but, like, what do you think is the most important quote?
Ever?
No, in that. Or one that you think needs more explaining. Or that you have more that you could have said about. Because you could have said more about anything, but what do you think is the most important? And if you would like to look at it, you can.
Yeah, sure. Pull it up. Because there's so much, yet so little. But the most important quote, and I want to read this right. Let's see. Is, and I remember it was when I looked outside in the moment and I wrote it out of an act of anger. And when I wrote anger was a privilege, I truly had to feel anger in the moment. I wasn't angry at the people in there. I wasn't angry at the authoritative figure for putting me there. I was angry when the people sat there and did nothing, and they replaced their God. It was very strange. They just kind of sat there, not complaining. They didn't sit there doing anything. They sat there consuming. And it was this that I enjoyed writing. I looked outside and I saw no destruction. For a moment, I saw ducks. I saw babies. I saw birth. I saw life. And I wrote, creators destroyed. And I think that might need to be elaborated on, because I looked around and I said, these people are not creating anything. There's a mother goose out there laying her eggs.
People tend to play God a lot.
In the courtyard. And I looked out there and I turned around and I looked at myself. I looked at my hands and I was like, we were given tiny fingers to craft tools. These people are playing on their phones. And I kind of had to reflect, and I kind of had to sit there and think of the best way to put it that I would read it. I didn't at the moment think I was going to share this at all. So I had to think about how I was going to put it in. If you can put it in the best light, like you were talking to someone else, then that's going to be the best way to carry a message forth. Hence, most of scripture is in the language of the time.
I have something here that I think relates to that. If you don't mind me reading it.
Go ahead. But I think that was very nice.
I think so too.
And of course, it's not perfect, because if it was perfect, it would have no room for commentary on it.
There we go. I find it funny that humans, being the only beings capable of conceptualizing the idea of God, are also the most godless creatures. For if there is God, there is also his absence. I mean, what an imaginative world. The color, the creatures, the patterns and forces and absurd factors. This godlessness emerges when we play God, and we mistakenly think we can create something as boundless and perfect as nature. Of course, our government is flawed, our schools, our lives. We are not gods. Continually, we deny this, saying that the key to conquering nature is to find peace in tragedy. But we are the ones building tragedy within peace. You try to conquer the most perfect ruler, a ruler so perfect that the most punishment he can bestow is the one you push upon yourself by rejecting his rule. And you think that is true? Think again, for God is not a lord but a system. You think he is a lord only because you wish to be him, and have created the construct he ought to have. The only element of amazement to our created society is its existence, not its creation. God is not man. Only individually can we be free of wholeness, sacrificial to our nature as much as we can be. Like birds without wings, we can still sing. Maybe we can even sing better without the wind in our faces. As much as I despise separation, admiration is our gift from all else. Do right, as thinking makes it so, and one can only think in truth if he admires and accepts. Where you can't find love, you find it most, and I guess I hate that message.
Wonderful. That's like a better way of saying what I said, or a longer way of saying what I said, because everything has flaws. But that was that did correlate, so you were correct.
Yeah.
You want to pull it back up?
Yeah.
We'll go.
I just think what's so painful about that, though,
is that the message doesn't reach everyone. I
Well,
wish that message could
in a way,
be spread throughout
is
the
that
world.
the only way you can achieve freedom from that message is individually. Because the
Right.
government will never be perfect, and the system will never be perfect. But people like you and me, and you watching this, can wake up and say, hey, that's not this, and I'm going to find my own way, and I'm going to make my own way. But it's never going to be in universal effect. It's only individually that we can find
If
that,
it was, there would be
that form of
what we
freedom
call total peace
and understanding. Because you're never going to get rid of all these buildings entirely. You're never going to get rid of the marks of civilization that we've left upon this earth. We are not gods. We cannot create something that huge. Like you said, we have tiny hands, tiny fingers, meant to create tools. This, the mirrors, the paintings, everything that I see in this room right now is not necessary for living. And we wonder why there's so much to contemplate and feel distraught over.
There's a lot of good stuff. I don't know if it's gonna. I could probably rewrite this 10 times as long and say it in the worst way, but simpler for those who don't understand, and I still wouldn't do it. I want to find the one quote I used. And it was one that was not original.
Is this open?
No.
No.
It can if that glass pane's out. Can't find it. I did like the opening. The light there and my retina burned with the knowledge of experience. You know what that's a reference to, of course.
To what?
The light.
Which we still haven't. I don't think we've talked about that.
Perhaps it's better.
Just like when they say you have a dream that seems important, you should keep it to yourself. But that's so hard to do.
Can't find the quote. It's meant to be. It was somewhere in there. People who really analyzed and the people who really cared knew what I said.